Okay, so I said I would do an offline lecture on audience analysis because this week you have to create an audience analysis for your persuasive speech. One of the reasons you want to do an audience analysis is you want to know, as much about the audience as you can know when you're generating your speech and you're getting ready to get up and talk to them. This is especially true when you're talking about a persuasive speech, because in a persuasive speech, you have a position that you're presenting and you are trying to sway your audience to go the direction you want them to go, whether it's to buy something or vote for something or to sign a petition or whatever it is that you're trying to persuade them to do. It's much easier to craft that speech if you know something about the people you're going to talk to. And so that's where an audience analysis comes in. If you have a proposal and you find out that most of your audience is neutral and hasn't made a decision, or they're neutral and leaning towards what you're proposing, you craft your speech so that you can sway them that little bit more. But if you're giving your speech on a topic that you find out most of your audience is strongly against, you have to present that speech in a completely different way. When we actually get to talking about writing persuasive speeches, there's several different formats or organizational patterns that you can use for those particular speeches. And some of them are specifically designed to work with an audience where you're proposing something that your audience is very against. So you need to know that ahead of time so that you craft the speech in the right way. You also don't want to talk to an audience and tell them a bunch of information they already know. So you want to try to find out, how much do you know about this particular subject, or what things do you know about this particular subject? Because you want to present new information to your audience. You don't want to get up and spend 5-6 minutes talking about something and they already know everything you're talking about and you've just wasted your time and theirs. Audience analysis helps you learn all kinds of valuable things about your audience, and as a result, you can alter your speech. And you're going to see an example of that in a little bit, an excellent job of doing an audience analysis. So here's an example of audience analysis actually in action.
Of America.
Mary Jackson, petition to attend courses at Hampton High School.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Hampton High School is a white school, Mrs. Jackson.
Yes, Your Honor, I'm aware of that.
Virginia, still a segregated state, regardless of what the federal government says, regardless of what the Supreme Court says. Our law is the law.
Your Honor, if I may, I believe there are special circumstances to be considered.
What would warrant a colored woman attending a white school?
May I approach your bench, sir? Your Honor, you of all people should understand the importance of being first.
How's that, Mrs. Jackson?
Well, you were the first in your family to serve in the armed forces, U.S. Navy, the first to attend university, George Mason, and the first state judge to be recommissioned by 3 consecutive governors.
You've done some research.
Yes, sir.
What's the point?
The point is, Your Honor, no Negro woman in the state of Virginia has ever attended an all-white high school. It's unheard of.
Yeah, unheard of.
And before Alan Shepard sat on top of a rocket, no other American had ever touched space. And now he will forever be remembered as the U.S. Navy man from New Hampshire, the first to touch the stars. And I, sir, I plan on being an engineer at NASA. But I can't do that without taking them classes at that all-white high school. And I can't change the color of my skin. So I have no choice but to be the first. which I can't do without you, sir. Your Honor, out of all the cases you're gonna hear today, which one is gonna matter 100 years from now? Which one is gonna make you the first?
Only the night classes, Mrs. Jackson.
Now that's from the movie Hidden Figures, but it's an excellent example of what you can do when you know something about your audience. She took the time to learn some history about that judge that she's going before, and she managed to make it audience-centered. She showed the things that he had done that he was the first to do. Then she pointed out things that Alan Shepard had done, and you notice she pointed out that he was from New Hampshire, not from Virginia, which was sort of a slap that, hey, somebody not from here did this and was the first. And she wants to be the first female colored engineer, but she can't get there without him being the first. She ties all that together, and she's successful in doing it because she's done her homework and she understands her audience, so she crafts her argument to that specific audience. And that's what you want to be able to do as well. So that's why you're going to do an audience analysis for that speech that comes up for the persuasive speech. So what is an audience analysis? It's a series of questions that you create. In this case, you're going to do it through Google Forms, and the instructions are in the assignment. But it's a series of questions that give you specific information to your topic so that you can then write your speech and make it about the audience, just like Mrs. Jackson did in that clip you just saw. So you're analyzing, who am I talking to? Exactly what makes up my audience from this group of people? What do I want them to know? What do I want them to believe or do as a result of my speech? So what is my call to action? What do I want them, after they listen to me speak, what do I want them motivated to go out and do? What's the action I'm looking for? And then how do I create and deliver my speech to achieve that goal? Mrs. Jackson did it by pointing out that he was the first judge to be recommissioned and all that, and then she tied it to her, and she tied it to the space program, which in 1959, the space program was a big thing. Everybody was trying to get there. And then she tied it back to him so that he would be the first to allow this to happen, and he would go down in history. So she crafted that speech and delivered it with the goal of getting him convinced to let her go to classes. And that's what you're going to do with your speech too. So you analyze, what is going on with my audience? Who makes up my audience? What do I need them to know? And how do I get them to do that? So you want to be very audience-centered in all of your speeches. We talk about that all the time. So you need to learn things like, what is the audience's background? She learned about that judge's background and what he had done and how he got to where he was. And he'd been through multiple governors and he'd been consistent. What is the background as much as you can learn about your audience? What's their level of interest on your subject? Sometimes you'll pick a subject and you might be the only one that's interested in it. So you have the task then to find a way to make your audience be interested in that subject as well. How do you connect them to your topic? And if you can't find a way to connect them to that topic, then you don't use that topic. You need to find something else. So it's also good for helping you decide, have I picked the right topic to talk about? What do they already know? How knowledgeable about this topic are they? Are they expert level? Am I going to have to talk to them as an equal expert? Or are they novices and they don't know anything and I'm going to have to educate them, so it makes it more of an informative speech and a persuasive speech combined? How do I relate my message to them personally? In that clip you just saw, Mrs. Jackson related it very personally to him being the first and her being the first and Alan Shepard being the first. You've got to find a way to make that connection with your audience. You're asking them at the end of a persuasive speech to act. So if they're going to act, they're going to have to understand why they want to act from a personal level. So you need to make that connection in that speech so that they will go and act the way you want them to do. And how will they feel about my message? There's a lot of different ways you can deliver a message. And if you know your audience well, you know what their push buttons are, and you know what ticks them off, and you know what gets them motivated. And so you craft it around that so that you get the feeling from them that you want them to have. Maybe you want them to feel sorry for something, or maybe you want them to feel energized about something, or you want to feel excited about something. The way you craft your words and the way you write your speech and the way you organize it all leads to that end result or that objective. So there's 3 types of audience analysis. There's demographic audience analysis, psychographic audience analysis, and situational audience analysis. In this one, you're going to do a little bit of all of that in your own analysis for the assignment. So the first one we look at is demographics. Well, that's the basic stuff. So what's the average age of my audience? Are they older? Are they younger? A lot of times, depending on what topic you're talking about and what you're trying to do, the approach you would give to a group of senior citizens, for example, might be drastically different than the same speech, the same kind of goal you want, delivered to some 20-year-olds. You know, they've got completely different frames of reference, completely different backgrounds. They look at things very differently. Obviously, 20-year-olds are going to be a lot more technology oriented, and you're going to want to focus more towards that. Whereas, most senior citizens aren't as technical oriented. So you have to find something that's less technical, or maybe you can appeal to a wider range of backgrounds to senior citizens that you can't refer to for 20-year-olds. Earlier today in another class, I was talking about public relations and doing analysis in public relations. And I was talking about having to do a lot of things on videotape. And I have to remember that most of my audience, my class in this case, were not born in 1993 when they had videotape as the most technological way of seeing video. And so I had to remember that into my age group. Whereas if I'm talking to people my age, they all remember that. They remember before there was videotape. So you want to know what's the age group the general age group that I'm talking to. What gender? Is it a mix of males and females? Is it a primarily male audience? Is it a primary female audience? Again, that's going to affect maybe some of the stories and examples that you use to talk about your particular topic. What religion are they? Is it a group of mixed religions? Is it a group of one particular religion? Do the religious beliefs of the group, how are they related to the topic that I'm going to talk about? That kind of stuff matters as well. What's the racial, ethnical background of the group that I'm going to talk to? Again, that plays into how you might approach examples and stories and explaining things. What's the sexual orientation of my topic? In a lot of cases, that does matter. And you need to know, am I speaking to all heterosexual audience, or am I speaking to a primarily same-sex type audience, or am I speaking to a mix? In a lot of cases, depending on what topic you're talking about, that could have a big effect on how you deliver that speech. What groups do these people belong to? If you're given a speech on gun control, for example, you want to know, do you have an audience largely made up of NRA members, National Rifle Association members, or do you have people who are more members of other kinds of groups? You're going to approach a speech on gun control very differently to NRA members than you are to people who aren't in the NRA. That could be a big indicator right there. So find out what kind of groups do these people that you're going to speak to belong to. Then the second group is psychographic analysis. Now this is not, am I going to go speak to a bunch of psychos? Because that's not what we're talking about. Psychographic analysis is more about attitudes and beliefs. So what is the attitude of my audience? Are they in a somber tone? Are they in a happy mood? Are they wanting to be motivated? Are they bored? Are they stuck at home during coronavirus and they haven't been out in a while? All of those kinds of things play into it. Now, when I normally do this in a classroom type setting, this lecture, I show a speech by Barack Obama from back when he was president. And back in, I think it was 2011, there was a shooting out in Arizona, and a U.S. representative named Gabby Giffords was shot. She wasn't killed, but she was shot. But several other people, I think it was 8, were killed in that same incident in the shooting. And she was standing outside of a store meeting with constituents, and somebody came by and shot a bunch of people. They were trying to kill her. They weren't successful in killing her. They killed some other people. It was major news, of course, because you'd had a U.S. congressperson be shot. It was also at a time when we'd had a rash of massive school shootings. President Obama had continually addressed different school shootings as they happened and asked Congress to have some kind of laws enacted, that some kind of change, because the current status quo wasn't working. They decided to have a memorial several days after this for the people who had died. They were also talking about Gabby Giffords. And President Obama decided to fly out to Arizona and speak. And one of the things he had to look at was this: what is the attitude of the audience? So he's flying out to Arizona. When he ran for president in 2008, he ran against John McCain, who was a Republican senator from Arizona. So he's flying out to the state where his opponent, who he just beat, is from. So he's got a primarily Republican state. They are believers in the National Rifle Association and owning guns. He's going out where we've had another mass shooting. There have been people killed. And what is the tone of the audience? And so he came into that speech with a very somber tone, as you would for, say, at a funeral when you're giving the eulogy or you're speaking at a wake. And he spoke initially in that tone. And the audience's attitude was somber, and for obvious reasons. They were mourning the loss of a lot of people and another school shooting and all of that. So he matched that attitude with the beginning of his speech. And then he avoided getting into any kind of gun control discussion or anything, but he talked about what America needed, and that we needed to be discussing these things and finding solutions in some way to put an end to this kind of violence. And by the end of the speech, he had them wound up and motivated, and he used one of the victims, who happened to be a little girl. I think she was about 10, and she'd been killed. And he used the example of, we need to be the country that this girl believed we were. And he did it in such a brilliant way that even though they were very somber at the beginning of the speech, they were very motivated at the very end. And I will put that speech up after the recording of this lecture on the page so that you can watch it if you want to. It's one of President Obama's greatest speeches. It's also one of the better speeches that we've had in about the last 50 years. He did several really amazing speeches. This one is one of his better ones. Some speech writers have referred to it as his finest moment. But you want to know, what's the attitude of your audience? You don't want to have a somber audience and you come in there all happy and giddy and ready to go. You're going to have to match that, or you're going to have to bring them up to it. Do they favor your topic? Are they opposed to your topic? And if they are, in either case, are they strongly opposed to it or strongly in favor of it? Or are they somewhere in the middle, mildly towards it, or mildly they could sway them one way or another? Knowing that has a big impact on how strong you present your argument in a persuasive speech. Then the third part is situational analysis. So you're looking at things like, what's the disposition of the audience towards the speaker? A lot of times the audience knows something about the speaker coming in, and that affects how open they are to hearing what that speaker has to say, or open to the idea what the speaker is presenting. Again, what's their disposition towards the topic? Are they really strongly against it? Are they fighting it? Are they openly protesting it? You know, that needs to be known ahead of time. What's the size of the room? Are you speaking in a gigantic IU auditorium? Are you speaking in a classroom size room? Are you speaking in a church? Are you speaking outside? Those are really hard to do, speaking outside. You want to know that ahead of time so that you can build that into your speech. If you remember Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, he did that in front of the Lincoln Memorial outside with microphones and an audience that filled for as far as the eye could see. He had to project his voice and build a lot more vocalics and pitch and inflection and tone and all of that into the speech because of the size. Well, it wasn't a room, obviously, it was outdoors, of where he had to speak. What's the physical setting? Are you going to be looking at people in chairs and you're standing behind a podium? Is it like a TED Talk where you've got a stage and you can move around? You want to know that kind of stuff also ahead of time. And what's their disposition towards the occasion? So I talked a little bit about President Obama talking at the memorial in Arizona. What is the disposition towards that? Did they want to be there? Did they not want to be there? Were they in a somber tone? Were they in a happy tone? All of that plays into understanding how to craft your speech. So the example that you're going to get, this is a really old speech. This is from Barbara Bush, who was the First Lady of the United States. She was George Herbert Walker Bush, or Bush 41, the first Bush, his wife when he was president. And he was the vice president under Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan was an extremely popular Republican president from 1980 to 1988. George H.W. Bush was his vice president. He'd had a long history with the U.S. government. He was at the time, they were considered very conservative Republicans. Nowadays, they would not be considered that conservative, but they were at the time. And Barbara Bush was a very conservative white woman, and she was the First Lady of the United States. So this is in 1990, and she is invited to speak at the commencement of Wellesley College. I don't know if you know anything about Wellesley College, but Wellesley College is an all-female liberal school, and it's in a very liberal school. They are very left-leaning, very, very strongly Democrat. And Barbara Bush was not the graduating class's choice for a speaker, and they had usually asked the class who they wanted to speak. Now, what was interesting in this situation, Wellesley has a color associated with each class that's going through. So one class is red, one class is green, and that's their color for the whole 4 years they're in school. So the class that was graduating in 1990 was the color purple. And what's really interesting about that was Alice Walker was a writer, and she had written a book called The Color Purple, and the movie came out, and Oprah Winfrey was in that movie. So it was a very popular movie at the time. So the class of 1990 really liked The Color Purple and the whole thing around it and the liberal beliefs that were projected by it. So when they were asked who they wanted to speak, they asked for Alice Walker to speak at the commencement. So the administration at Wellesley promptly then went out and invited Barbara Bush to speak at the commencement. Not anywhere near what the class was looking for in a speaker. She didn't share any political beliefs with them. She didn't share any other beliefs with them either. They were very liberal leaning, believed women should be working and being leaders in government, and leaders in business and all of that. And this is in 1990. There wasn't a lot of that then. There had been one lady that had been on a ticket, national ticket for the presidency as a vice president candidate, but most of the time people didn't talk about that very much. You know, women didn't run businesses very often. And then you have this political, this very right-wing conservative woman coming in. And at the time, the Soviet Union had just stopped being communist, and they weren't the Soviet Union, they changed to being called Russia again. And the leader of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev, and his wife were in Washington to visit President Bush. And so Mrs. Bush decided to bring Mrs. Gorbachev to Wellesley with her for this review. So now you've got a former communist associated leader coming with a Republican first lady to speak to an extremely conservative or extremely liberal audience who clearly does not want her there. And then days before she was due to land and do the commencement, they were protesting. The students were protesting that she was the selection, and they were very vocal about their protests. They were out in the open. It was on the news. Barbara Bush was very aware that they did not want her. And in a lot of situations since that time, Condoleezza Rice, who used to be Secretary of State, is one of them that I can remember. She backed out of a commencement because of similar kinds of protests where people made it clear they didn't want her there, and she said, okay, I'm not going to go. Barbara Bush did not do that. She said, no, I'm going. And she did an audience analysis, and she figured out what are the values of these people that I'm going to speak at, what's the history of Wellesley, what's it like, what are some of the things, that she got familiar as she could with the audience, and then she did this speech. So you're going to see this speech is a little over 10 minutes long, but what they do during the speech is they show you the analysis from the audience analysis. You'll see the psychographic stuff and the situational stuff and the demographic stuff will pop up on the screen next to her as she's talking. So you'll see where she takes elements from the audience analysis and puts it into the speech, and they show you how it was crafted in, and then you'll see the end result of that speech. So keep in mind, I think earlier we had talked about, if you know the right stuff, you can go into an audience that is vehemently opposed to you being there, and the potential is still there to actually win them over. So this is that speech, Barbara Bush, 1990.
In 1990, former First Lady Barbara Bush gave a commencement speech at Wellesley College, a private all-female liberal arts college near Boston, Massachusetts. Before the speech, a group of 150 students staged a protest against her. They felt that Mrs. Bush did not represent Wellesley because she lacked an independent career. Students had hoped to hear instead from Alice Walker, a famed civil rights activist and author of The Color Purple. Many were disappointed to receive Barbara Bush, a college dropout and homemaker. In her speech, Mrs. Bush acknowledged the controversy and spoke frankly about her achievements. By recognizing her audience and their values, she was able to gain an unexpected level of understanding. She reminded students that success is not defined by social expectations, but by unique personal goals. When listening to this speech, note the 3 types of audience analysis that Mrs. Bush used. Demographic analysis, which focuses on the audience's gender, age, and culture. Psychographic analysis, which focuses on their beliefs, values, and life experiences. And situational analysis, which focuses on the setting and mood of the audience.
Thank you very, very much, President Cohan. Mrs. Gorbachev, trustees, faculty, parents, and I should say Julia Porter, class president, and certainly my new best friend, Christine Bicknell. And of course, the class of 1990. I'm really thrilled to be here today, and very excited, as I know all of you must be, that Mrs. Gorbachev could join us. These are exciting times. They're exciting in Washington, and I had really looked forward to coming to Wellesley. I thought it was going to be fun. I never dreamt it would be this much fun, so thank you for that. More than 10 years ago, when I was invited here to talk about our experiences in the People's Republic of China, I was struck by both the natural beauty of your campus and the spirit of this place. Wellesley, you see, is not just a place, but an idea, an experiment in excellence in which diversity is not just tolerated, but is embraced. The essence of this spirit was captured in a moving speech about tolerance given last year by a student body president of one of your sister colleges. She related the story by Robert Fulgham about a young pastor finding himself in charge of some very energetic children, hits upon the game called Giants, Wizards, and Dwarfs. You have to decide now, the pastor instructed the children, which you are, a giant, a wizard, or a dwarf. At that, a small girl, tugging at his pants leg, asks, "But where do the mermaids stand?" And the pastor tells her there are no mermaids. And she says, "Oh, yes, there are. They are. I am a mermaid." Now, this little girl knew what she was, and she was not about to give up on either her identity or the game. She intended to take her place wherever mermaids fit into the scheme of things. Where do the mermaids stand? All of those who are different, those who do not fit the boxes and the pigeonholes. Answer that question, wrote Fulgham, and you can build a school, a nation, or a whole world. As that very wise young woman said, diversity, like anything worth having, requires effort. Effort to learn about and respect difference, to be compassionate with one another, to cherish our own identity, and to accept unconditionally the same in others. You should all be very proud that this is the Wellesley spirit. Now, I know your first choice today was Alice Walker. Guess how I know? Known for the color purple, instead you got me, known for the color of my hair. Alice Walker's book has a special resonance here. At Wellesley, each class is known by a special color. For 4 years, the class of '90 has worn the color purple. Today, you meet on Severance Green to say goodbye to all of that, to begin a new and a very personal journey to search for your own true colors. In the world that awaits you beyond the shores of Lake Waban, no one can say what your true colors will be. But this I do know. You have a first-class education from a first-class school. And so you need not, probably cannot, live a paint-by-numbers life. Decisions are not irrevocable. Choices do come back. And as you set off from Wellesley, I hope that many of you will consider making 3 very special choices. The first is to believe in something larger than yourself, to get involved in some of the big ideas of our time. I chose literacy because I honestly believe that if more people could read, write, and comprehend, we would be that much closer to solving so many of the problems that plague our nation and our society. And early on, I made another choice, which I hope you'll make as well. Whether you're talking about education, career, or service, you're talking about life. And life really must have joy. It's supposed to be fun. One of the reasons I made the most important decision of my life to marry George Bush is because he made me laugh. It's true, sometimes we laugh through our tears, but that shared laughter has been one of our strongest bonds. Find the joy in life, because as Ferris Bueller said on his day off, life moves pretty fast, and you don't stop and look around once in a while, you're going to miss it. I'm not going to tell George you clap more for Ferris than you clap for George. The third choice that must not be missed is to cherish your human connections, your relationships with family and friends. For several years, you've had impressed upon you the importance to your career of dedication and hard work, and of course that's true. But as important as your obligations as a doctor, a lawyer, a business leader will be, you are a human being first. And those human connections with spouses, with children, with friends are the most important investment you will ever make. At the end of your life, you will never regret not having passed one more test, winning one more verdict, or not closing one more deal. You will regret time not spent with a husband, a child, a friend, or a parent. We are in a transitional period right now. The parents. We're in a transitional period right now, fascinating and exhilarating times, learning to adjust to changes and the choices we, men and women, are facing. As an example, I remember what a friend said on hearing her husband complain to his buddies that he had to babysit. Quickly setting him straight, my friend told her husband that when it's your own kids, it's not called babysitting. Now, maybe we should adjust faster, and maybe we should adjust slower. But whatever the era, whatever the times, one thing will never change. Fathers and mothers, if you have children, they must come first. You must read to your children, and you must hug your children, and you must love your children. Your success as a family, our success as a society, depends not on what happens in the White House, but on what happens inside your house. For over 50 years, it was said that the winner of Wellesley's annual hoop race would be the first to get married. Now they say the winner will be the first to become a CEO. Both of those stereotypes show too little tolerance for those who want to know where the mermaids stand. So, so I want to offer a new legend. The winner of the hoop race will be the first to realize her dream, not society's dreams, her own personal dream. And who knows? Somewhere out in this audience may even be someone who will one day follow in my footsteps and preside over the White House as the president's spouse, and I wish him well. Well, the controversy ends here, but our conversation is only beginning, and a worthwhile conversation it has been. So as you leave Wellesley today, take with you deep thanks for the courtesy and the honor you have shared with Mrs. Gorbachev and with me. Thank you, God bless you, and may your future be worthy of your dreams.
Did you expect Barbara Bush to receive a standing ovation at Wellesley? Think about the way she connected with her audience. How did she use humor to face this stressful situation? And why was audience analysis so crucial to this speech? Today, university students still occasionally protest against graduation speakers. Next time it happens, think about the techniques that the speaker could effectively use. And if you ever have to face a potentially hostile audience, what will you do?
So that's a really, really good speech, and it shows you how important audience analysis can actually be in winning over an audience that you know ahead of time does not want you there. And you see all the elements that she incorporated in that speech, and that incredibly good job of taking the elements from the analysis, putting it into the speech, getting a standing ovation from an audience who at the beginning clearly did not want her there. And consider the fact that was 30 years ago. And what she talked about then is still pretty relevant, even today. So you've got to create an audience analysis on your persuasive topic. And the way the assignment reads, you need to have a minimum of 6 questions and you need to have 2 of each type. So what are the types of questions we're talking about? Well, we're looking at fixed alternative questions. So things like, do you believe in blah? Yes, no. Those are fixed alternatives. There's nothing in the middle. There's no other choices. It's true, false, yes, no. Those are fixed alternative questions. And in your survey, you want 2 of those. So at least you get some idea. Then the other one is a scale question. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not at all and 10 being absolutely, how do you feel about X? And then you have a whole scale there, and they can pick 3, they can pick 7, they can pick 10, whatever they want to pick. It gives you an idea on a topic like gun control, because I've used that a couple of times in this as examples in this lecture. It gives you an idea of whether they're pro or con on guns, and it also tells you where in that spectrum from 0 to 10 they fall. Because a lot of times, if your audience is sitting about a 6 or a 4, you're at the midpoint almost. It's a lot easier to move some of those people over to the other side if that's where you happen to be, than it is where you find out your audience is a 2 or a 9, because they're a lot stronger in their beliefs. So a scale question gives you that kind of understanding of where they are in relation to your topic. And then the last one is open-ended questions. So you can ask, what do you think is the most important thing about blah? Or how do you feel about this? And they have to fill it in with what they think. So it's like an essay question is on a quiz. So you've got 3 different types of questions. Now, in the Google form, it really quickly tallies up the fixed alternative for you. In the scale questions, you get answers real quick. So you get, on the fixed alternative, maybe you get 10 responses and you find out 8 yeses and 2 nos. On the scale questions, you get 10 responses and you find out that the average is about 4. So now you know where they are sort of in relation, and you can kind of see how maybe it's, you've got them mostly you're over here on the 1 through 5 range, and you've got 1 or 2 out here at the 10 that bring that over. That can also be important to know. On the open-ended questions for the Google form, you'll actually have to go in and read the responses and get a feel for what they're talking about. But you get direct, this is how I feel about this. It's very valuable information. It's not as easy as just doing true, false, or a scale type thing. You want to create 2 each of those kinds of questions related to your topic. Now you've got to think about, what type of questions do I want to ask, and which ones fit which one of these 3 types, so that I get valuable information out of that. And then you will create your form in Google Forms, and you'll get a link that's shareable. And then you'll go to the discussion board that's referenced in the assignment and paste the link. Now make sure that your link is clickable. So you paste in the link, and then you go up and you click on where it says external link and paste the link in there again, so that it's a hyperlink, so that they can actually just click on it and go straight over. If you just paste the address in, then they've got to copy paste that to an open window in order to get to it. So try to remember to make it a hyperlink. And then what you'll do is, after they're all in, so these are all due, have your form created and posted by Sunday night, then after that, you want to go into that discussion board and go down the discussion board and answer everybody else's surveys, so that everybody gets an idea of how everybody in the audience feels in regards to their topic. And that's the subject of audience analysis. So you've seen a really good example of it, and we've talked about what's necessary for the assignment. If you have any questions going forward, shoot me an email. I will have office hours tomorrow afternoon from 2 to 4 on Zoom through the link. And I will see you all tomorrow for the process speeches. Talk to you later.